Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed and welcome back to Venus Improbable Dream. That's disappointing to hear, Akane. Disappointing? A word that seems to be synonymous with anything I do. It's Thursday and Sensei has collared me before lunch again to ask how the music club meeting went yesterday. I'm doing my best to tell him, but I don't want to be a part of it. Was Kudo not appreciative of your piano playing? No, he was nice. 4 words this time. Somebody shut me up. Nope, there's 4 words that you need to spill out. I'd meant them too. Kudo-sensei had been considerate about my issues when integrating me into the music club. That wasn't the problem. Well, in that case, I don't see why another trial should be too difficult. Breaking the ice is the most troublesome part of starting a new endeavour like this, and you've already done it. Though his speech and body language are as stiff and professional as ever, I get the feeling he's trying to encourage me. Yes, that's correct. What do you say, Akane? Would you give it another shot? I've been ordered around in disguise again, aren't I? I honestly can't agree to something that will cause me more discomfort, and though I want to give him some sort of answer, I find myself stuck, unable to formulate a response. Sensei seems to sense this. Well, you have the rest of the day to think it over. If I were you, I'd make the most of the opportunity. You might enjoy yourself once you settle down. He nods awkwardly, seeming to want to express some sort of reassurance towards me, though he's not very eloquent at it. I don't think a hug is in his physical vocabulary. Not that I'd want one. I bow slightly in response. The end of our conversation reminded me urgently of my #1 objective: get away from everybody. Time for lunch. I've made a decision. Lunchtime had given me some time to ponder Sensei's words, and I realized 2 things. Number 1, I still don't want to be in the music club. Number 2, it would be rude of me to just disappear without talking to Sensei first. Even if he hadn't noticed me slinking out of the room early, he would have realized by the end of the club meeting that I was no longer there. I feel a pain of guilt, knowing how spineless that was. Not that I could help it. I had to get out. But Kudo-sensei still deserves an explanation. I might be Mr. Invisible, but I still have enough of a conscience to realize that if I'm not going to join his club, I should tell him in person. That's basic respect. I'm not exactly enthralled about the idea of putting myself on display in front of an entire room full of people who also witnessed my disappearing act. But if it'll get this thing over and done with, then I'll do it. Then I'll never have to go back there again. That's the thoughts that fills my head as I pack my things away, conscious that the last class of the day is about to be over. Donning my backpack, I wait impatiently for the bell. As always, I prefer to be the first person out of the room, to avoid the crush of human traffic from everybody else. As soon as it rings, I dart towards the door, exiting into the corridor before anybody else has fully left their seat. Empty hallways. That's how I like it. I stride purposefully towards the music club room. Despite my fluttering nerves, I just want to put an end to this and have things go back to the way they were before. My legs, trained by now to carry me as swiftly as possible and get me to the club room in no time. I'm not even sure Kudo-sensei would be here yet. After hesitating for a moment, I swallow my fear and push on the door. And you're lucky. Akane, you almost beat me here. He regards me with a casual smile. He really is the polar opposite of Matsumoto-sensei. The fact that only the 2 of us are currently in the room gives me the opportunity I need to talk to him. It would be much better with less people around. Sensei? Damn it, just spit out Kakeru. It isn't that hard. Sorry for yesterday. His expression changes a little once I say it. Ah yes, I wonder where you'd gone for a moment. Cringe. Sorry, Sensei, I can't help being a coward. She didn't scare you too much. Okay, so you knew about that incident, did you? She? The girl in the back room? How's he know about that? Because probably she informed him of that. I saw that you explored the other room. I probably should have warned you about her. So he noticed me creeping all after all. He doesn't seem mad, though. If anything, he looks a little apologetic. I was in two minds as to whether to introduce you or not. It could have been easier to go down that route. He seems to muse this aloud to himself, as opposed to telling it to me. However, he pulls himself together quickly. Haruka is something of a special case. She hadn't joined the group sessions, but she practices the flute by herself. That's not really in the rules of the club, but... His mouth twists into a pitiful frown. We gave her the benefit of the doubt, being disabled and all. This new information takes me by surprise. I hadn't noticed anything unusual about the girl, although I suppose it didn't look properly. I was more occupied with her flute playing, and being terrified. Kudo-sensei almost looked amused for a second. I bet you gave her a bit of a shock barging in there. She tends to get flustered around new people. That part of his sentence I can empathise with wholeheartedly, but it's the last part that throws me for a loop. Considering that she's blind. Ears. Blind? I hear the door open behind me as a gaggle of club members enter noisily. It startles me. But at the same time, the impact is dampened slightly by my state of contemplation. That girl who stared at me as though she'd seen the devil incarnate was blind? It only takes me a moment to wrap my head around who Kudo-sensei has told me, what Kudo-sensei has told me. As if knowing exactly what I'm thinking, he moves his attention away from me momentarily, greeting the other students arriving. She hadn't really seen me at all. The thought is strangely jarring, as her horrified expression had seemed to suggest that she was perfectly capable of seeing the monstrosity that had been in front of her. However, the more I think about it, the more I correlate it to my own feelings. I can't stand meeting new people, I just panic. It must have been scary for her to have somebody burst into the room, and then realise that she didn't know the person after her hearing them speak. I must have really spooked her. I almost laugh aloud at the idea that I could scare someone more than they could scare me. Miracles are possible after all. Before I can continue down this path of thought, Kudo-sensei speaks again, rousing me back to the room. Anyway, that's that. I'm sure there's no real harm done. He peers across the room, counting the heads of the students present, and as I take a quick glance myself, I almost jump at the sight of them all. Jeez, the room is filled up fast. Seemingly satisfied, Kudo-sensei turns back to me with a smile. Right, seeing as everyone's just about here, let's get started, shall we? For God's sake. I got so wrapped up thinking about what he told me that I haven't even had chance to tell him that I don't want to be in a music club. The room is filled with an enthusiastic buzz, as it had been yesterday. For a moment I considered going ahead with my bad news, but seeing Kudo-sensei's encouraging expression, coupled with how awkward I feel standing at the front instead of sitting at the piano, I grudgingly relent. Alright, I can try it one more time. I nod briefly, swiveling to make my way skittishly across the room, and avoiding eye contact with everyone around me. I can't say that taking up a piano stool feels any more comfortable than it held yesterday, but I sat down anyway. Sighing quietly, I resign myself to another 2 hours of torture. It's not torture. It can't possibly be torture. Alright, that's free practice, everyone. Be sure to work on your timekeeping as always. Chatter breaks out in the room, and a flurry of movement erupts as people splinter off into their usual practice groups. Not a part of any of them, I continue to sit despondently at the piano. It had been basically the same as yesterday. I struggled to stumble my way through the piece, and hadn't displayed a shred of improvement. After a few run-throughs, I'd been asked to sit out while the rest of the group played through the other pieces they'd been practicing since before I got involved. It was a relief to have nothing to do for a while, but then the group session had closed with another rendition of the piece I'd been trying to play to the same results. Now I understand why this free practice period is so important. It gives people a chance to go through their individual parts at length, rehearsing as much as they need to in order to get better at their instrument. For someone like me, who doesn't have an access to a piano outside of his club, it's invaluable. I'm still not wanting to come back for another club meeting. The embarrassment of it all is too much to handle on a regular basis. But for the remainder of this one, I might as well at least look like I'm trying to practice. Or actually practicing. Please. Placing my hands back on the keys, I read the sheet music again, trying to get my playing more fluid. However, it's proving to be difficult. Not only because I'm still incredibly self-conscious about practicing in a room full of musicians that are better than me, but also because I can't get something out of my head. A nagging feeling about that girl. Yeah, oh my god, I was just about to say that and that crept up. I really didn't see any of the information that Kudo-sensei told me coming. Not only is it surprising to learn about her disability, but I also feel terrible for essentially terrifying a poor blind girl with my clumsiness. I'm such an idiot. Trying to shake it off, I continue to paw at the piano distractedly, until footsteps tell me that Kudo-sensei is approaching. Tough, isn't it, Akane? Getting to know a new piece. I nod. My gaze at his feet rather than his face. You can always ask any of the other club members for help. They don't bite. Well, I haven't been bitten yet, anyway. He grins at his own joke, and I almost join in. Although, he looks thoughtful for a second, and I can't figure out what he's contemplating. Thankfully, I don't have to wait long to find out. Go and introduce yourself to Fujiwara. He seems serious about it, and I'm taken aback by the sudden suggestion. Maybe this is the path that we need, you know, somebody who can't... I know this is going to sound morbid, but kind of like you could have two different scenarios where one would judge you by sight, but on the same front, if someone is blind and you have something that is quote-unquote morbid about you by surface value alone, then they don't see that aspect of you because they're blind. I'm not saying it's a good thing to be blind, by the way, folks. It's probably, most definitely, one of the most horrific things that can happen in one's lifetime, you know. To not be able to see the colours of the world or be able to see your own hands. It would be indescribable. That's the only way I could probably describe it. It would be indescribable. Indescribably life-changing. But Fujiwara would probably be more open to Akane than he realizes because she can't see that aspect on him. I know that being in a big room like this is probably a bit uncomfortable for you. Fujiwara's the same. Have a chat with her. I bet you two will have a lot in common. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. A feeling of isolation. Other than the anxiety around people, I don't think I could relate much to a blind girl who somehow plays the flute even more effectively than I can play hide and seek from the rest of the world. And I'm damn good at that. Nevertheless, Kudo-sensei continues to push the point. I don't mind if you take things slowly, Akane. Practice is important, but you need to familiarize yourself with things first. If talking to someone you might feel more comfortable around first will help you put more ease here, then go for it. He's a nice guy. Perhaps it's the musician in him. He's more in touch with emotions and deep concepts and all that stuff artsy people are supposed to be good at. I think artsy people, as you would call it, touches on emotions much more than you probably think. Because an art piece has emotion in it. It's just not personified through your vocals. It's personified through the actual art piece itself. At first, I'm not sure what to say to his suggestion, but as the unsettling image of the girl's scared expression comes up in my mind again, I realise I should at least say sorry for doing that to her. My second apology of the day. I'm doing a great job. Cautiously, I nod at Kudo-sensei, indicating that I'll take him up on it. He seems satisfied, smiling and stepping backwards to give me room to stand up. Just take it easy today. We can start getting down to some proper work next time. He turns away, heading across to talk to a group of students, leaving me to internally thank him for being so understanding. He's a very patient teacher, if I must say so myself. Not all teachers are patient with a... I'm not going to say Akane is a difficult customer. He is another way of saying difficult, but without the difficulty of being around someone who is uncomfortable because of their actual actions. He turns away, heading across to talk to a group of students, leaving me to internally thank him for being so understanding. It's awkward to just stand up and leave the room in the middle of free practice, but at least this time I've been granted permission. As I enter the quiet of the hallway, the sounds of the other musicians muffled by the walls, I make my way hesitantly towards the door of the other room. This feels very wrong in a number of ways, and I definitely don't feel confident about it at all. I just hope she can forgive me for yesterday. The sound of the flute catches my ear again. She's practicing the same piece as before. Realizing I should probably announce my presence before I go strutting in there this time, I raise my hand and knock timidly on the door. She might have not said anything in response, but she definitely heard that. Taking a large breath, I open the door. The light in the room might still be bright. There's a piano here too, I've just realised. But thanks to its small size and near empty state, it feels slightly less intimidating. I let the door close behind me, blocking out most of the sounds produced by the other club members. Just me and her. Oh my gosh, she's scared again. No. Just me and her. Hi, it's me. She continues to look in my direction, bewildered. From yesterday. The slight shift in her expression suggests that she knows what I'm talking about, but her body stays just as rigid as mine. I take a proper glance at her. Her eye line meets my chest, not really looking at me, but aware of my general position in the room. That's when the revelation hits me again, yeah. She can't see your face, Kakeru. The entire reason for my social anxiety is not applicable to this situation. It's an impossibility. I almost don't believe it. It takes me a moment, but after hammering it into my head a few times, I manage to find a tiny scrap of confidence from the fact, and open my mouth to speak again. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Feeling as though I've momentarily turned into a different person, I dare to look at her in the eyes for just a moment. Her gaze softens a little. That's okay. The soft sound of her voice is so delicate, I barely hear her. We both stand there for a moment, a tremendous amount of awkwardness hanging in the air between us. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it does when I'm in class, or in the club room with everyone else. It's ever so slightly more bearable. It seems as though I'm just about forgiven for my trespassing, so I mutter the courage to speak again. I joined a club yesterday. Well, that's not entirely true from my perspective. I was kind of forced into coming. She takes a moment to process the information before replying. Do you play the piano? How does she... Of course. She'll have been overhearing the rest of the club's practices for months since her last pianist left. The sudden reappearance of its sound would have given it away. Yeah, she nods. Sorry if I was... She struggles with her words, before cutting herself off, evidently unable to express herself properly. I know exactly how that feels. She looks a little regretful before she manages to speak again. I don't get visitors here. I realise that she's referring to how she'd looked at me yesterday, knowing now that it was simply a fear of being exposed to a random person and not of my appearance. I don't feel mad at all. No, it was my fault. My admission still doesn't alter the guilt on her face, and it makes me feel bad for her. She must worry about how her reactions to people affect her. Thinking about our similarities, I force myself to keep talking, trying to demonstrate some common ground. Actually, I'm kinda jealous that you practice in here. I don't like crowds. I haven't spoken this much in years. It makes me a bit dizzy. It makes my vocal cords so allergic in a way. It's like I'm eating something that I'm allergic to. But I keep doing it anyways because I'm trying to fight that fear of the repercussions of eating something that is allergic for you. After averting my eyes to steady myself, I look up again. She claps her hands around her flute, looking thoughtful. Me neither. I feel as though I don't like crowds is a bit of an understatement, so I awkwardly try to explain myself a little further, although it's not exactly nice to talk about. I try to avoid people. They make me nervous. God, I sound like such a baby. Looking away again, my eyes wander to the back wall of the room. There's another piano in here, although this one was brown and looks a bit older. Leaning against the side of it, I spot what must be the girl's cane, the long stick that helps her with navigation. Things must be very difficult for her. Huh? It takes me a second to realise that the tiny noise she just emitted was actually a very timid laugh. When I look at her, she seems to have relaxed a little, smiling ever so slightly. I'm the same. You don't like crowds as well? I feel my own breath rushing out of me in something resembling relief, and the feeling is utterly odd to me. How am I this calm right now? Does the fact that she can't see what I'm insecure about really changes things this much? Well, I'm not exactly calm, but still, this is the easiest I've felt around anyone for a long time. It's so unfamiliar that I'm not even sure if I like it or not, as stupid as that sounds. However, it seems as though my admission of my anxiety around people has struck a chord with her. Kudo Sensei was right. We do have similarities. I suddenly realised I committed another social blunder, in that I haven't introduced myself. I'm Akane, by the way. Akane Kakeru. I feel my face begin to flush with heat. I don't think I've said my own name aloud once since I started at this school. She nods in recognition. I'm Fujiwara Hakura. I'm not the best with Japanese names, by the way. She grips her flute a little tighter again, seeming to be thinking about something. It's not so bad now. We're not really strangers anymore. She blushes slightly as she says this, her face tilting towards the ground, and I feel myself wanting to smile internally at her somewhat innocent childlike point. No, I guess we're not. The conversation runs dry, and though I haven't checked the clock on the wall, I become conscious that I must be taking up a lot of Hakura's time, when she could be practicing. I should probably let you play. She glances towards her instrument, almost as though she'd probably forgotten about it. I don't know where I see probably though, which is not in a sentence right now, but I just said probably. Before nodding in agreement, I reach for the door, pulling it open gently. See you. That word see is probably not the best. Despite the fact that she can't see it, I bow my head, probably in one last apology for encroaching on her personal space. Just as I'm stepping through the doorway, the sound of her voice reaches my ears again. I think, though, that doing normal things like bowing is still very nice, even though she can't see it. If she knows it happened, then it sounds like you're treating her like... Or actually, let me take that back. It doesn't sound like you're treating her like a normal person. You're treating her like any other person. I pause, looking back into the room. For a moment she doesn't speak, and clumsily I realise that she probably isn't sure if I'm still there or not. Yes? It seems like the right move, as she relaxes a little at my voice though, fidgets with her flute before continuing. If you wanted to talk again... Her expression grows nervous as she pauses, but after a second she regains her focus. I wouldn't mind. Ah. The words catch me off guard. Our second encounter has been thoroughly awkward and embarrassing, but amongst it all, there was something that made me feel like being around her is just that little bit less uncomfortable than others. In that way, I understand what she means. Still unsure on how I feel and what I'm really saying by it, I found myself replying with a single word. Okay. Evenings are always the same. I come home from school, go straight up to my room and do my homework. At some point, one of my parents pops in momentarily to deliver me a plate of whatever's for dinner. It's shameful, but I haven't eaten dinner at the table with them for a long time. Once I'm done eating, I usually give in to be urged to fritter away the rest of the night playing video games until I go to sleep. I'm about to do just that. Finishing the last of my meal, I set my chopsticks down and recline. Feeling full, I get up and turn the game's console on in a minute. Feeling lethargic, a yawn escapes me, and with nothing to focus on, my mind wanders back to the events of the day. What a strange experience. I'd actually spoken to Haruka of my own violation. And not only that, I said full sentences, several of them. If I were acutely aware of how full my stomach feels right now, I'd suspect that my body was being possessed by someone who's actually good at talking to people. For you, with a visually handicapped contrast, which other people would easily judge you for because it is a very, very alien thing to see, it would mean that having somebody who has a opposite problem, but someone who can acknowledge a person by their personality rather than appearances, is probably going to be a way to break the ice for Akane. You know, having someone who is blind and who wouldn't have the ability then to judge someone by their visual appeals because they can't see their visual appeals, but through their actions, through their tone, through their vocal senses. Audio senses, sorry. As I'm pondering this, I recall the image of Haruka's cane propped up against a piano. Sorry if I went a little bit off tangent in that sentence. It's really hard for me to be able to fathom out a sentence without words on a screen. I really can't imagine what it's like to be blind. It's just too confusing. How she's learned to get by all this time with such a limit to her senses is mind-boggling. The more I think about it, the less I seem to be able to wrap my head around it. I remember there being a music stand there, too, with her sheet music on it. How on earth does she use it? I realise that music is mainly about sound, so technically there's nothing really stopping her from being good at the flute. But there's also how you, oh gosh, I may go off tangent again, but it's also how you interpret the information given to you. The information itself isn't really a means of it being portrayed to you only with visuals. Like, you may be told to play a certain sound, and then through that sound you would fathom out a way to be able to recreate that sound without using something that is on screen. So technically there's nothing really stopping her from being good at the flute, which she seems to be. You'd just think that learning pieces would be extra difficult for her. Thinking back to what Kudo-sensei had said when he was telling me about her, I consider her place in the music club. She doesn't join in with group activities. She doesn't seem to play the same pieces as the other people do. She just keeps to herself in that little room, doing whatever she likes, I guess. In that case, then why is she in the club? Does she really count as a member if she doesn't contribute anything? Kudo-sensei has given me the impression that she'd been allowed this freedom because of her anxiety around people. I guess she can't stand playing music with the others. Heh, ditto. It's quite sad to think about it that way, though it's as if she'd just been tucked away in the back room and forgotten about, seemingly incapable of doing anything of real value to anyone. That's not true. Everyone is capable, no matter what kind of conditions that you are undergoing. You are capable of doing anything that you want, as long as you put the amount of effort it is required to achieve it, but also as well, how much of that do you want to achieve? It takes conviction. As this thought runs through my mind, another one joins in, something that Kudo-sensei had said multiple times. I bet you two would have a lot in common. Now that I'm considering Haruka that way, that suggestion doesn't seem so great. Is that why he practically sent me to go talk to her? Because he knows I'm going to be useless in the group? That's not true at all. Because I think he would know that you two would have a lot in common. Shove the two, quote-unquote, mind you again, special kids together and hope they become a nice pair of dumb friends. No. Nice pair of friends, yes, but not a nice pair of dumb friends. No matter what disability you have, you're not dumb, and you're not any less capable of achieving something than a person who doesn't have a disability has. I sigh audibly, trying to shake off the notion, that's probably not the intention behind it. Also, that whole train of thought was rude on Hakuo's part. My shoulders sag a little in guilt. Try not to go down that rabbit hole, I try to consider Hakuo herself. She must get something positive from being in the music club, otherwise she wouldn't do it. I have to admit, I'm just the tiniest bit curious. Tiny bit curious. I feel like if I were in her position, I just feel like that all the time. Hearing everyone practice from another room and knowing that I didn't belong with them. She must have a different perspective. Casting my mind back one more time, I remember the last thing that Haruka had said to me before I left the room, reminding me that I do in fact have a way of finding out how she sees things. If we wanted to talk again, I wouldn't mind. Does this mean that I'm actually going to go back to the music club for a third time? I must be mad. Well, I suppose they do say it, don't they? Third time's the charm. Yep. Lightning strikes twice, but third time's the charm. So we didn't have the talk with Sensei then. The bigger, bulkier Sensei. Here we go again. Striding unsteadily down the corridor towards the music club room, I remind myself with disdain that it was in fact my own idea to come back here. What on earth has happened to me over the last couple of days? A revelation! I guess curiosity is mostly to blame. I couldn't help but wonder at Haruka. So now here I am, about to put myself through yet another arduous and nerve-wracking group practice, also I could talk to her afterwards. Still, I do kind of relate to her in some way, so I guess it's natural for me to want to know why she does this every day. Huh? On the surface of the door leading to the club room, an A4 piece of paper has been stuck, a note written upon it in rather neat handwriting. Due to an urgent commitment, I am unable to attend today's music club meeting. Club activities will resume on Mondays. It's signed at the bottom by Kudo-sensei. Well, that's unexpected. I've been getting myself all riled up for nothing. In the end, however, just as I'm about to leave, a now familiar sound reaches my ears. Incredibly distant, but still audible. You've got to be kidding me. The flute again? I push my way into the club room and am met with a pitch-black darkness. Where the hell are the lights in here? After fumbling around and feeling the wall like a weirdo, I find the light switch. The sudden intensity of the light hits my eyes uncomfortably, but as I adjust, I find myself feeling really glad that the room is empty now. It's a much less intimidating place to be when no one is here. My ear is picking up on the flute again. I make my way towards the corridor. She can't really be in here, can she? I suppose if she's blind, then she might not be able to tell the difference between how the club room usually is and now. But still, taking a breath, I push the door again. She really is here. The lights are off in here too, as they had been in the main club room. If I weren't so tense, I'd probably laugh my ass off at the situation. Ass! For a moment, she simply continues to play, and I'm surprised that she hasn't reacted to my barging in. The flute is pretty loud. I figure I should turn the lights on before doing anything else. I'll start swatting at the wall again, eventually finding the switch that I'm looking for. The sharp click on the switch flipping resounds across the room, announcing my presence to Haruka. She stops playing and turns around straight away. It's me. You should have said that first before flicking the switch. My nerves caused me to admit my name, but I guess she recognized my voice, as a look of acknowledgement appears on her face. Akane, are you not practicing with a group? She looks in my direction, evidently confused. I wonder how she's going to take the news. Well, club is cancelled today. Huh? She stares past me slightly, nonplussed. Is that why it's so quiet in the other room? This is pretty funny. Yeah, there's a note on the door. Kudo-sensei had something else he needs to do. Her eyes wander, and I can practically see the cogs whir in her mind as she takes it in. My amusement fading. I realize that she might feel very self-conscious about making a mistake like this. I prepare myself to console her in whatever inadequate way I can. If she ends up getting panicked about it, however, the opposite happens. Am I alone in here? Her face brightens a little, so I guess she's starting to see the funny side. Yeah, I only came in because I heard your flute. The lights weren't even on. Aww. Wonderful expression right there. A few seconds of silence follows. Then she raises her hands to her face, covering her mouth as she giggles quietly. It's an awkward wooden laugh, but she still overcomes her own nerves enough to let it slip. I must have looked so stupid. I'm not gonna lie, she kinda did. But I'm not going to tell her that. Instead, I give out a small laugh of my own, tickled by the funny situation and also glad that it hadn't triggered a bad reaction in Haruka. The lighter atmosphere serves to quell my tension a little. My tension, sorry. Haruka then turns to the chair to her left, reaching out to feel for the open flute case, which is resting on top of it. After locating the groove where the flute goes, she placed it in the case gently before turning back in my direction. Do you think we should leave? That's the point. We're not really supposed to be here, considering that club has been cancelled. Think about it though. It's not like we'd been doing anything bad if we used the room to practice anyway. It's still club related. I think it's probably okay. She considers it for a moment and then nods in agreement. There's another silence, although it's a bit more relaxed than the first one. Then Haruka looks towards me again after seeming to think about something. By the way, I don't mind if you call me by my first name. Her cheeks turn a little pink. We don't need to be that formal. She's probably right, although it's still kind of embarrassing. We still don't really know each other after all. Still, I appreciate her willingness to be on the first name terms. To be honest, it surprises me. Alright, you could do the same with me then. She nods, seeming somewhat pleased, but then her expression drops, looking regretful. I hope I don't... well... I'm agonizingly familiar with struggling to get your words out. I give her all the time she needs to continue. I'm sorry if I don't look at you in the face. My heart flutters a little at the mention of my face. I know it was just a figure of speech, but it still gives me a pain of panic. Glancing up at Haruka's downcast expression, I realize that my lack of response might have made her feel worse. I just can't always tell where people are, to look at their eyes when they're talking at me. She hangs her head in shame. I recognise that sinking feeling that I can tell she's having right now. I can read it on her face. There's no need for her to apologise for something like that. There's no way she can be at fault. Don't be. It's okay. I really don't mind. Don't mind gets nowhere close to describing how I feel. The fact that Haruka is oblivious to the flaw that torments me about myself is the only reason I'm able to have these conversations with her. She gazes towards me again, seeming unsure about my words of comfort. Seriously, it's fine. I really don't like people staring at me anyway. She softens at this, seeming to relate to it. Me neither. She nods to herself for a moment, seeming to be convincing herself to trust my word. How tall are you? For a moment I wonder why she wants to, so that she can have a general idea as to where she can tilt her head to be able to get towards your eyes as much as she can. For a moment I wonder why she wants to know, but then I realise that knowing my height would probably help her get an idea of where my eyes are if she was trying to look at more directly at me. I'm not that much taller than you, a couple of inches probably. She nods again, adjusting her focus and raising her head slightly to implement this new information. She's a little closer to looking at me properly, although it's still not quite there. It's close enough for me, even if she can't see. We both fidget simultaneously, out of topics of conversation, and it gives me a chance to remember why I came here today in the first place. I want to ask her why she stays in the music club. Feeling awkward as though this might be too personal a question to ask, I stay quiet for a moment before plucking up the courage to speak. Can I ask you something? She seems to grow a little tense at the sudden interrogation. Okay? Praying that I don't upset her for whatever reason, I pose my question. Why are you in the music club? I realised I'd asked her this very clumsily. I could have put it in a much more diplomatic way, but instead I just blurted it out. Taking a quick look at her expression, she seems to be a little confused. I just mean, you don't join the group. Her eyes lower and I immediately start backtracking in some lame attempt at damage control. I totally get why. I don't like working the group either. I just wondered. It's hard to know how to word this without it seeming somewhat accusatory. The last thing I'm trying to do is suggest that it's not worth her coming here. Well, you must get something from it personally. My gaze hits the floor and I begin to feel terrible. I've probably offended her. There's yet another period of silence, and when she speaks again, I expected her to chastise me for seeming insensitive. Luckily I'm wrong. I do. Daring to peek at her again, I see that her demeanour has changed. Her whole energy seems to be lighter. This might sound a little strange, since I struggle to be around people, but I've always wanted to perform. She wrings her hands slowly, seeming shy about what she's telling me, but nevertheless she doesn't stop. Music has been important to me for a long time. As soon as I started hearing it, I really wanted to be able to play it myself. I don't think I can join the rest of the club members. She pauses for a moment, looking conflicted and a little sad, and though I can't fully know the true weight behind what she's thinking, I can still understand her point of view a little. But I'd like to do it myself. That's why I come here. I keep practicing, so that maybe one day I'll be able to do it. You mean, perform on stage to an audience? Yes, I know it's stupid. I can see why she thinks it's a futile goal. People like us aren't really designed to be put under a spotlight. Despite this, I don't want her to talk badly about herself. It's not stupid. I'm not very good with words at the best of times, so I struggle to say anything else. However, it seems as though what I managed to splutter out has still hit the mark, as Hakura's expression brightens again. Thanks. I watch as she gets a somewhat far-off look in her eyes. I can't tell what she's thinking about, but the way she smiles is very striking. This is the most relaxed I've seen her. Whatever's going through her mind must have made her genuinely happy. It's a dream, I guess. The dream I've had for a long time. Even while just talking about music, she seems so at peace, as though she's forgot about her anxieties and issues. The calmness of her reverie seems to permeate through the air, causing me to feel somewhat serene too. The nervous waves that permanently course through my body are still there as always, but they're just ever so slightly muted right now. Neither of us speak for a few moments, apparently content to just absorb the tranquil atmosphere in the room, but eventually Haruka turns more directly towards me. Sorry, I probably talked too much. It's okay. I don't mind listening. It's much easier than speaking. Then again, that makes you a good listener than Akane, because you don't speak that much. That means you can absorb more information than most of us can, because you're not busy talking, but you're more busy listening. Haruka smiles a little in response. Her eyes averted for a second. I catch sight of the clock on the wall. It's not exactly late, but I should probably leave Haruka to her practicing, if it's that important to her. I should probably go. I don't want to keep you from practicing. Okay. Now that I think about it, it'll be nice to get home slightly earlier than I have been doing recently, considering that I've stayed for most of both club meetings I've attended, instead of going straight home like I usually do. Thanks for talking to me. Sorry if I weirded you out. I say this because it was probably quite random and forward of me to suddenly ask her about and her motives for staying in the club. It might have come across aggressively. You didn't. Well, that was a relief. Okay, we'll have fun. She nods in reply as I head back towards the door. At least I didn't have to play the piano today. Haruka! It feels odd to hear her say my name out loud like that. My first name too, but we'd agree on it. I retract my hand, which had been reaching for the door handle. Turning back to her face, I see from her unsettled expression that there's something else on her mind. Okay. On Monday, I see what she's getting at. I don't know what she could possibly gain from having awkward conversations with me, but if there's something about it that she enjoys, then I think I could probably keep doing this. It's not like talking to everyone else. I could come and say hi if you like. I say this so that she doesn't have to continue trying to ask a question. It seems to help, as her shoulders relax a little and she looks up towards me again. Yes, alright. Vince decided then. I've already committed to coming back to the next music club meeting on Monday, as well as talking to her again. My life has taken a serious turn. Okay, I'll see you on Monday then. She nods, seeming somewhat pleased, and I nod back. Not sure of why I'm doing it. I open the door, my legs feeling a little wooden as I exit the room. You could have had the perfect chance there to practice with piano just a little bit while you were on your own. It doesn't take long for me to leave, retracing the route I take every day to and from school. To my relief, the streets are relatively quiet. I guess everybody else is still doing club activities. My mind begins to fill with mundane thoughts, such as what might be for dinner, or how long my homework is going to take me. Mixing with them, however, is the long conversation I just had with Haruka. Well, it was long for people like us. A dream that she's had for a long time. I don't think I've ever had anything like that. No burning passion or far-reaching goal. If anything, my only ambition in life has been to go unnoticed, pretty much the opposite of most people my age. I think Haruka might want something similar when it comes to everyday life, at least. Neither of us like being around people, preferring to do everything alone. And new situations make us panic. It seems as though we both enjoy a bit of invisibility. Or prefer invisibility, to say the least. It's quite nice to know that there's someone who actually understands what I go through every day, more or less. However, there are little glimpses of something else in Haruka that I don't have. From the way that she's spoken to me so far, I could tell that she definitely has more confidence than I do. even if it's only a little. The fact that she has a dream like that in the first place is proof of that. It must be a massive conflict for her though, wanting to do something that you don't dare put into action, yearning to be something that you can't. I definitely couldn't live like that. I gave up wanting anything a long time ago, and life has been a lot simpler since. It's a depressing way to live, I know, but if you don't have goals, then you can't fail to meet them. That's really bad. I found myself shaking my head at my own apathy. In a way, Haruka could be in the same position as me. She could see the world as bleakly as I do. And yet she doesn't. She keeps working towards something that will probably never happen. For what reason? To say that at least she tried. Is that really any kind of victory? Of course it is. Because you pursued for your goals, even if you fell short. It doesn't mean that that time dedicated to that goal wasn't worth it. It's the experience you gain along the way. Not every failure is a failure. And saying that, in those failures, you can make improvements in the future to better yourself. Every day is a learning experience. No matter how good you are at a particular subject, there's always something around the corner that will surprise you. Unable to truly wrap my head around her persistence, however, I have to admit that while it's almost maddening in its futility, there's also something admirable about it. Fighting against your fears in order to achieve something that you never thought would be possible. That's the kind of stuff that heroes in anime and movies do, although I guess ordinary people do it too. People like Haruka. People like me? Could I ever do something like that? Of course you can. My instinct is to scoff incredulously at the notion. There's no way the Invisible Man is ever going to throw himself in the middle of a crowded room and put himself on display. Although having said that, I've kinda already done it twice now. Even though I'd performed appallingly, I attended 2 club room meetings and done my best to play along with everybody else. I guess that technically means I could do it again. I could actually try one more time, genuinely attempt to improve my piano playing and contribute to the group, as opposed to dragging it down. I'm clearly not in love with the piano like Haruka seems to be with the flute, but at the same time, from my basic experience with private lessons, I do know that it feels quite cool to be able to play a piece properly. Fumbling around and messing it up is soul-crushing, but getting it right is a good feeling. But is it good enough to pursue? Is the satisfaction of playing a piece well worth putting myself through daily agony, having to be part of a group that terrifies me? I can't say. And I can't say on behalf of you, Akane. The only thing I know as I round the corner and head down the far stretch towards home is that my mind keeps going back to Haruka. She's facing the same thing as I am, and yet she's pushing forwards regardless. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I think that's how the saying goes, if she can do it. I'll give it one more try. 1 minute to go. Now that lunchtime is incredibly exciting, but it's probably the calmest part of my school day. My regular spot is a bench, far out towards the back of the school field. No one ever really bothers going there, as most people either eat in the cafeteria or in their classrooms. It's a blissful snippet of peace along the chaos, It would be beneficial to have like a cafeteria or a playground CG rather than the classroom CG if we're talking about lunch and talking about the geographic location of the school being not in the class itself. I hoist my backpack onto my shoulders, waiting for the sound I know is coming. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just a thought process of going there, not actually being there. There it is! Now I can... Akane, a word please. Really? Is it necessary? It is necessary. My stomach doing flips as the way many of the students in the room turn to glance at me, thanks to Matsumoto Sensei's exclamation across the room towards him shakily. I really hope these talks aren't going to become a regular thing. Akane. Kudo tells me that you have been present at the music club twice now. Will you be attending today? His expression is the same as it always is, and yet I swear I can see a tiny glimpse of hope within it. Yes. Though my feelings towards trying the music club once more had wavered between open-minded and doubtful over the course of last night, my decision has ultimately stayed the same. I'll give it one last shot. Wonderful news! In that case, I think you'll be needing this. He turns away from me for a moment and reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a single sheet of paper. It's the music club's new member application paperwork. Now that you're getting used to going there, you may as well do it properly. He hands me the paper expectantly, looking optimistically at me as if he's just given me the most amazing birthday present in the world. I don't quite know how to react to this. Filling out and submitting this application would cement my future as an official club member, tying me to an obligation that I would be looked down upon if I neglected. It's almost too much to think about. Matsumoto Sensei doesn't seem to notice my internal panic, however. I'm glad you gave it a chance, Akane. This could be the start of a new chapter for you. A chapter in the horror story, by the looks of it. I can't bring myself to say anything properly in reply, so I'll simply nod, wanting to get out of the classroom. I'll probably be able to think about this more logically when I'm not so on edge. To my relief, it seems as though our conversation has come to an end, but before either of us can move... Akane Kakeru? What the hell is going on today? I turned my neck stiffly to look towards where the sound of my name had come from. There's a boy I don't know standing in the club room's doorway. I swiveled back around to face Matsumoto Sensei, mostly out of fear, but he simply regards me with vague amusement. Well, someone's popular today. He walks off towards the board, leaving me to figure out this strange, unfamiliar situation alone. No one has ever called on me at my classroom before. It seems as though the students still left in the room are just as shocked as I am. A lot of eyes ping-pong between both me and the person in the doorway, scrutinizing and trying to figure out what our relationship is. It's incredibly uncomfortable. Struggling to force my body into motion, I stagger my way towards the mystery person. As I pass my desk, I feel my hand opening, depositing the application paper onto it. I don't really know what I'm doing, but being this nervous, all I can do is really go with it. I steal another speedy glance at this visitor, and this time, I do see something vaguely familiar about him. He's one of the music club members, the oboe player, sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I can't remember. I just know he's a part of the assemble. He smiles as I approach, and steps back in the hallway, inviting me to follow. At least that was considerate. Escaping the stares of my remaining classmates, I round the corner of the door to where my visitor is standing. There are other students walking up and down the hall, but at least they don't stick around to watch us. For a second I have to remind myself to breathe. It's okay, he probably just wants to ask or tell me something. Let's not have a panic attack here. I do my best to look the guy in the eyes, to signal that I'm ready to listen. I don't quite manage it, but he seems to pick up on it anyway. Hey, sorry to call you out. Kudo-sensei asked me to give this to you. He extends another piece of paper towards me. If this is the new member application again, I might just faint. It's a list of the main songs we've been learning since the start of the year. Oh, that's not as bad, I guess. Awkwardly I take it from him, gazing at it intensely, although I'm so jittery that I don't think I'm really reading it. It's just an excuse not to look at him. It's kind of tough for you to get up to speed with us since you've joined towards the end of the year. Kudo-sensei put this list together so you can look up the pieces and start learning them. He should help you out a bit. I nod, keeping my eyes fixed on the paper in my hand, although after a moment I realised it would be rude of me not to say anything. It's a nice gesture to try and help me, even if Kudo-sensei had asked him to do it. Thanks. No problem. Hope you find it useful. To my surprise, he walks away, leaving me standing there outside my classroom, motionless with anxiety. I expected him to try to make more conversation, but I guess I was giving off such awkward vibes that he didn't want to stretch it out. I probably weirded him out big time. Either way, I'm grateful that my obligation to talk to both him and Matsumoto-sensei is now over. I really need to go to my lunch spot and calm down. For a second, I turned my back towards the classroom, remembering that I left my application form on my desk. However, as I take a peek into the room, a fresh burst of trepidation fills me as I see the remaining students now locked in loud conversation as they sit in groups, eating their lunches. I can't go back in there. Feeling like an idiot, I swallow my inaccuracy and bolt for the stairs, leaving the paper behind. Okay, we're going to leave things off here, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry for the many constant mispronunciations and stutters within my words. It's unfortunately just a part of me that I try and tackle around, but sometimes it just really gets to me that at times there are words on the screen and somehow I can't read them, or I can't pronounce them correctly, or something like that. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you all in the next time of Venus Improbable Dream. Have a lovely day and take care of yourselves.